Hi, my name is Carmen Drum, a mental health provider and student wellness coordinator for OUHSC. And today we're going to talk about grief. Right now the world is experiencing what's called collective grief, as we're all experiencing a loss of normalcy, a loss of connection, and uncertainty for what is to come, fear for our economic security, and watching many social structures destabilize. And we find ourselves experiencing a process of grief, but perhaps many don't realize that that's actually what is happening right now, and that is the emotional response that they're sensing within themselves. We can grieve all of these things. Grief is not something that only takes place when life is lost. And grief is a very natural process that brings our attention to a need to adapt when change has taken place. Now, maybe you have heard of the stages of grief. It was once thought that these stages are linear, but we now know that they in fact are not, and we can experience each of these stages at varying degrees at various points in time. One of those stages would be denial, and that's denying the fact that change has occurred. Maybe in the example of what's going on right now with the ongoing pandemic, denial would have sounded like the virus won't make it to my country. It won't impact my life. And then there's also the stage of anger. And anger may sound like I am so frustrated that all of my events that I was looking forward to have been canceled. I'm angry that school has had to change in the way that it has, and that I cannot easily make plans right now. All of these things are making me angry. And there's bargaining. Bargaining is the aspect of, okay, well, if I agree to self-distance myself, to self-quarantine for 2 weeks, then things are going to get back to normal. Sometimes bargaining sounds like a negotiation with a higher power. If you make things right again, if you make things normal again, then I will commit myself to this cause. Then there's also the stage of sadness, of feeling that grief and how overwhelming it is, and questioning, when is this going to stop? When is it going to feel right again? And there is this stage of acceptance, where we then say to ourselves, okay, this is happening and I do have to adapt. Now again, we can exist in several of these stages, even at one time. For example, you may feel angry that you have had to reschedule your wedding. But at the same time, you're practicing acceptance because you have adapted to the many changes that your college program has had to make, going online. And while the pandemic has changed how grief looks, as we are limited in how we can find closure, we're limited in the ceremonies that we can practice for those who have died, we are less able to receive in-person support from others, and we have continued uncertainty for what's going to happen, which makes it difficult when we are grieving the loss of normalcy, the loss of a loved one, and yet having to try to plan for the future. Not to mention the fact that we have consistent reminders of illness and death as time continues on. So it is so important to understand that self-compassion, having compassion for yourself as you move throughout all of these stages, back and forth. And staying connected, even when you want to socially withdraw from others, If you find that that's hard to do, maybe it would be helpful to create an appointment with some friends where every Thursday night at 7, we're going to have a Marco Polo catch-up, a house party, or whatever FaceTime medium you prefer. And then also being mindful of how much you're exposing yourself to the news. Stay informed from, of course, use the best of resources, the CDC as an example, without immersing yourself. And remember that grief is a natural process that takes place when normalcy has been disrupted. It is a part of our resiliency. It is a part of our adaptation and healing. Join us for SES Connect as we talk a little bit more about these stages of grief, how to navigate them, and how we can best support others who are grieving. Thank you so much for watching.